Live.
We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, something strange has been happening in the world of cryptocurrency, Web3, and tokenization. It seems like crypto might be finally growing up, but unfortunately, not everyone is going to survive this transition. Welcome back to the Wealth and Wisdom live show. As people tune in, my name is Tyler. I'm your host here, and today I am sitting down with Jared Busby, also known as Crypto Confidence on Substack. He has been working in crypto since 2018 as a community manager across companies like OKX, Ripple, and Abra. Welcome to the show, Jared. Why don't
Thank
you
you
take a
so much.
second and introduce yourself? I could tell from our pre live conversation that you think very deeply about some of this stuff. So tell people who you are. Tell people what you do.
Yeah, so I got involved in crypto 2018. Actually, bought my first little bit of crypto in 2017. Went on Coinbase. Had a friend tell me, you gotta buy some. I was like, I don't know what to buy. So I just kind of bought random, and then I don't know how to put it. I fell down the rabbit hole, started studying this stuff, got obsessed, and then started helping an early NFT startup in 2018 that was local to where I live. And then from there, got hired by OKX because of my Quora content. Was a big Quora writer. Still a little bit am. Quora's not what it used to be. And gone from there to do social media management, community management, blog writing, and even some data related tasks. Um, been in the industry ever since.
Perfect. I mean, this is going to be a really interesting show because previous guests we've had on have been more of the actual operations side, KYC, anti-money
Mhm.
laundering, CEOs, COOs. So it's nice to see someone who's actually in the trenches of this,
Mhm.
especially because so much is happening. I'll be honest, for watchers at home, people might have noticed it's been a couple months since we've had a crypto episode. Um, for a combination of factors, the biggest being the world seems to be melting down around us. And I know I joked about that in some previous articles and had hinted at that, saying that the global order is starting to dissolve a little bit. I never meant it as a threat or in earnest, but yet here we are, 2026, and I never would have expected the situation that we're in right now. Hello, Feed Your Mind. Thank you for joining the live show. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments. We'll try our best to answer them. Um, this isn't included in the outline, but I want to jump into it because it's connected to one thing we're going to talk about later, and we were talking about it before we go on the live show. Let's talk about crypto scams
Okay.
and kind of online scams in general because AI has really ratcheted that up. We were talking beforehand. I'm pretty low energy today because I got up at 7 a.m. this morning to actually before that because I had to go do my morning stuff because I had a interview at 8 a.m. with a VC firm overseas that said that they were interested in hiring a crypto analyst. Uh, but when I broke down into it and I started looking at the links they sent me, for example, I realized that it was a phishing scam. They're getting very, very sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
This looked like the link they sent me looked like a Cisco WebEx link. But I've learned from experience that I actually need to grab that and make sure it's real because for people at home, some of the scariest scams today are not even like, you know, they talk about in the news all the time. You answer the phone and it's your wife saying she's been held hostage. No, the really devious ones are the ones that, make a fake Google page or worse, a Target page and use a Cyrillic A instead of a regular A. And you don't even know unless you're looking for it. So let's talk scams for a little bit. We had a big, a really big takedown last year with Prince Group over in Southeast Asia. But since then, there really hasn't been a lot of noise as far as I could tell. Mahmoud Salaman and Yanis, thank you for joining the live
Hey
show.
guys.
If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer. But Let's talk scams, Jared. You've been in this longer than me. You know a little bit more about how the industry's going on, and you had some interesting thoughts about this. So go ahead and share some of your thoughts.
Well, I mean, the thing I'll say is AI just makes it really easy to make a scam website, make things that look good. I've had a scam job interview too, and you get the link, and then I always go to the bottom and click the social media links. Oh, we're on LinkedIn, we're on X, and there's no it's not even a clickable link. So sometimes they they get lazy. They don't they just have a few commands to an AI, and then they don't go any further. That does help. I mean,
Mm,
that's one thing I have seen. It's not all, but many scammers are lazy. Um, that's just always something to look for, is laziness. But I ultimately think that a lot of the scam problems are international relations problems. Why is it that, say, India doesn't police their people who are scamming US citizens, for instance? Um, and if I was made president, one thing, President Trump loves to throw out the tariffs. My reaction is, hey, if a country is, say, scamming the US $20 billion a year, give them a $30 billion a year tariff. And once the scam goes down to, say, $5 billion a year, we'll end the tariff completely. Why, why should, to me, if we're paying as a nation, then make them pay, or at least make them hurt,
mm,
basically, because they could police it. They choose not to because it doesn't hurt their own people. So there's a blind eye component. Um, that's at least one theory I have. I do realize, like, when you have organized crime and stuff like that, it might be overwhelming. You might have a corruption problem where the police will not go after it. I realize it's more complicated than that. I do think there's an international component to this, though, where the USA government has not tried to get these other countries to deal with the scammers.
I'm going to say something here that might get me in trouble. First off, I am going to push back on the tariffs just a little bit, not because of any like anti-Trumpism in particular. At my heart, I'm an Austrian when it comes to economics. And so,
Me too,
frankly,
by
in my opinion, um, I think that tariffs are not nearly as effective as just making your own economy as productive and as efficient as possible by getting rid of most of the rules that are unnecessary so people can just, build businesses and produce things and grow. What might get me in trouble is this, and it has to do with the Prince Group, because I did look into that very deeply. John Sanchez, thank you for joining the live show. Um, I was looking at the time, I was working as a contributing author for Blockchain Deposit Insurance Corporation. I was helping them get their product off the ground. And I was looking at the Prince Group because I was writing an article about it. And what I noticed, Jared, and everyone watching, is, and this seems to be a habit with China. I've done a lot of writing and research into the Chinese economy over the past 2.5-ish years. China has a surprisingly fragmented regulatory landscape when it comes to local leadership on paper. It could actually actively be malicious. I don't want to jump to that conclusion. But one of the things that kept getting hinted at articles when the Prince Group thing first came out, and then all of a sudden it was gone when China jumped on and decided to help prosecute the Prince Group. But when the story first dropped, you kept hearing, and I don't remember his name, but CEO and president of Prince Group, yada, yada, yada. This is what he was doing. He was keeping people against their will, running pig butchering scams, running relationship scams, etc. Oh, and by the way, he had some regional Chinese regulators on payroll. So there definitely is a component of that. I was talking with Liam Murphy, the president of Murphy Law, and I know he hates it when I bring this up. Um, I think you're right to a point, Jared, where there is some state actors involved here. I mean, we know North Korea is a infamous state actor when it comes to crypto fraud. There's been some stories of cryptocurrency fraud and theft in Iran as well. Um, Overall, I think one thing that I've learned now over as much time as I have studied in this, though, is that part of the issue is there's still not the robust infrastructure that makes it that has lowered fraud and scams in the TradFi markets. Now, obviously, it's not necessarily like watertight. This is the joke I tell people all the time whenever they talk to me about Bitcoin and like how it's being used for um, criminal activity overseas, and it's like, it's much easier to do that with the dollar because there's so many of them. The Fed's not going to track them all, and every transaction on a Bitcoin ledger is tracked. They know the wallet,
Right.
they know where you are, they know how much it was when it happened. Um, but that being said, on some of these smaller layer ones and layer two coins, the infrastructure just isn't there for fraud detection, fraud risk, fraud protection. I mean, that's why I was working with BDIC in the first place, is as a wallet insurance company, they actually have some leverage if they were to take this to exchanges, for example, which they are, and say, we'll insure your wallet up to this many each wallet up to this many number of dollars, but you have to really ratchet down your fraud protections. Just like we do with car insurance and not SEC, FDIC insurance here. Banks aren't allowed to do stupid stuff because they're FDIC insured, in part because the regulators go, no, we're bailing you out if you make mistakes. So you have certain rules you have to follow. Um,
I don't think your idea will work with crypto, unfortunately.
okay, explain. No, I'm curious to hear.
Well,
Go ahead.
okay. It could work with an exchange.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so a centralized exchange or a custodial wallet, I will agree that that could work. Um, I think for non-custodial wallets that that's not really very possible
Mhm.
because ultimately the person who has custody of the wallet is gonna do what they're gonna do, and it's kinda built for that. So if you want something to be non-custodial, your keys, your coins, that's gonna kinda be there. Now, I mean, I think there's some things that can be done to help, like Rabby Wallet's done some things, like, "Oh, this is a spam," these are like, "Oh, these coins you're receiving, NFTs you're receiving are spam, don't look at them." Um, Saving addresses, things like, send to in the future, some of that
Mm.
stuff you can help. But at the end of the day, I don't think you can do some of the stuff that you're talking about that centralized systems can do. So I think that's why I go back to though why at the same time we've had this fraud problem with all these other countries since the dawn of the internet. That's why I mean Nigerian prince scam. I mean that stuff's been going on since the 90s.
Right.
This None of this is new. None of it. Amazon, gift cards. I
For sure.
mean, the gift card scams. So to me, you could talk about fraud protection, all that stuff. I ultimately see this as just as once again, this is actually I think this is actually more of a political problem.
Yeah, which I mean, you are fair in that case, and you could even take it a step deeper because this is something I talk about with my brothers around AI, morals, finance. Is ultimately there's, at least in my experience, there's typically some kind of moral aspect going on, an us versus them philosophy, which is just part of their culture. I remember when I first started studying China, one of the things that came up a lot, which made me really sad, but also reframed how they look at the world. Um, if I remember understanding their ideas of power and who can rule correctly, they have a philosophy that not everyone is born to rule. That's a very
Mhm.
Western philosophy where we're all operating on an equal stage. And in a lot of the places in this world, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
And so there might be some of that going on too, of hatred for the United States, or this belief of like, oh, I mean, another issue too. This goes back to John Brown, Heresy Financial, is America is so wealthy in terms of GDP per capita and in terms of average household income that
Mm-hmm.
our own government already pisses away trillions of dollars a year, and we're productive despite that. So the rest of the world might just be playing along. They're like, oh, no one's going to miss this. They miss it. We miss it now because it makes headlines, and who knows
I
what.
think we've been missing it. I just
Hmm,
think what happens is grandma gets scammed, and then it's embarrassing for the family, so we just sweep it under the rug. The idea that no one misses it, I don't think is true at all.
oh, okay.
I just Yeah, I just think what happens is, let's be honest, it's the elderly who get scammed the most. And so they do, and then they get scammed too many times. You then try to get power of attorney or something like that. Um, that's and then yeah, but most time families do pay for it. They just sweep it under the rug because what else can you do? Granny's lost her mind, and no one wants to go online and talk about how granny or mom has lost her mind and how she's
Yeah.
getting scammed all the time. So no, we're paying for it. But it's too embarrassing for the families to go talk about. So that so this I see that why the world might see, oh, the USA is so rich they can get away with it. They can lose it. In reality, no, no, no. These scammers are attacking families, and they're scum. And let's not act like they're not scum. Now, I want to be careful here. One thing, as you point out, hey, some people are scamming because a criminal organization is kind of forcing them to. They're kind
Mhm.
of in a hostage situation. That's fine. The criminals who are doing it are scum. I
No,
mean,
absolutely.
there's scum somewhere that needs to be locked away, and that's what's not being done. And that also comes to me where we talk about, oh, AI, AML, KYC, that helps prevent it. No, it doesn't. Does nothing for it. It actually, I believe it makes it worse. But we could talk about that if you want.
I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts, because that is, you know, do I hear certain voices share similar thoughts on like LinkedIn, Twitter, Substack, etc.? I do, but they don't actually ever put it into words. It's like my professors who, when they talk about how great AI is and I press them on it, they can't answer me. So defend your position. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. This is
Um,
interesting.
so I have a few different ways that this goes.
Mm,
So way number one, KYC requires an organization like a bank to store all your personal information. And this is personal information that's static. You will always have the same social security. You will always have the same name. You will always have the same birth date. You will these are things. Your address could change, but that's pretty static too, usually. I mean, the average person lives in the same place for years. So this is all static information being stored on a server. And you see this all the time. All these Chase Bank, all these different banks and credit card organizations, all the data gets stolen, and all that KYC information is taken. And now AML makes it so all these banks have to be able to share it with 50 different, 100 different government organizations. Oh, that couldn't make it easier to steal the information, could it?
What could possibly
Please,
go wrong?
please. What could possibly go wrong? Well, we already know billions of dollars worth of information stolen every year, but it's worse. Okay, so now that opens up for fraud from criminal organizations, right? Because hey, I have all this information about them, and also I have AI. I wonder how hard it is going to be to guess his password and also to know where he works and who he is. And okay, you've just given them all this static information and email address and previous password as well. I wonder how many websites he uses the same password. Or okay, this maybe he doesn't use the same password, but his first password showed something about personality. So all this stuff, and we also know it's him because we have his name, all this stuff. So you're making it so easy, okay? Because it's all in one spot. Okay, now let me take a step further. Why it's even worse. It was ironically put under it the Patriot Act. I actually call it the Unpatriot Act. It's actually not patriotic at all because if we ever end up in a war with, say, China, they have you made. They have all your information. They know who you're related to. They have all your network. And so if you happen to say work, let's say you have a family member who worked at the power plant, who could shut the power plant down. Maybe they can't get your family member because maybe he's too strong or whatever, but they're able to blackmail you or they're able to bribe you into doing something to the family member or friend. It's a national infrastructure risk. So right now it's just scams and fraud. You put in World War III scenario, it's not that anymore. It's a way to attack the citizens of the USA without ever launching a successful missile. You shut down the power plants to New York City for a week, how many people die? Or the water? I see this as the biggest mistake the USA ever made.
Well, to be fair, I will agree with you on that. This is, uh, I take a different angle, but I will agree with you on that. Also, Manpreet Hayer, thank you for stopping by. Welcome to the live show.
I know I said
This
is out, not something you normally hear, but it
No,
just
I appreciate, again, because like I've said in the past on this show, I believe that the burden of proof is on the person making the claim. So
mhm.
I'll give you a classic example. This was what, 4 or 5 months ago. I have a professor. I actually deeply respect him. I don't know if he respects me anymore, but he was talking about how crypto was a scam and look at how AI's changed the Nasdaq. And I simply asked him, how does an increased price in the Nasdaq imply that crypto is a scam? That's all I said. Because on paper, his data did not prove that. You cannot take the price of the Nasdaq and say, look how well the Nasdaq's doing. It means that that crypto is a scam. That's a fallacy. It doesn't work like that. You
Right,
actually
what do
have
the
to
2
have,
the 2 have to do with each other?
yeah, you're making an assumption that they're correlated and they're not. In fact, and I don't know if this is still the case, but I remember a point where there were Bitcoin miners in the Nasdaq. So it's like, by anything, it actually means that crypto is more valid because they're in there and the Nasdaq's going up. So anyway, that's all I asked him to do. And he immediately went on this tirade about how it's bad for the environment and how, it's a Ponzi scheme and all this stuff. Never proved his point. That's all I care about. You make a claim, prove it. And,
By the way, I have a whole Substack series about Bitcoin myths I'm doing. I think I'm on, like, number 10 or 11 right now.
nice.
Well, some are still scheduled, but my goal is to write over 30 of them and make a whole book out of it. Like,
Nice.
I
Very
I
nice.
plan on being as comprehensive about it as I possibly can be, and I try to break them down. Like, one thing I've seen when people go on that tirade, they make a string of pearls. "Oh, it's bad for the environment, and it's worthless, and criminals use it, and so I just go, "Okay, cut a pearl at a time. Let's look at each argument by
Mhm.
itself. Because once people like make those string of pearls, it gets too complicated to even analyze, and people you lose track, or you break one pearl and they go, well, you're not looking at the big picture.
I was about to say, frankly, I believe that's the point. We see this all the time. Here's a fun little exercise, and it actually makes the presidential debates worth watching. For anyone at home, if you want to do a fun little philosophical exercise, see how many axiomatic claims, so claims that you can't disprove immediately, like they're taken as sacrosanct, they're taken as just God's fact that you can't possibly change, and assumptions, and see how many they stack together in one breath. It's crazy. Trump does it all the time. Hillary Clinton did it all the time. Marco Rubio, I watched his debate during the 2024 race. It was bad. It was like point after point after point after point after point, to the point where it's like, man, I wish I had you on a 60 Minutes episode. So, like, we're going to take each one of those and we're going to pick it apart because you made 15 different claims in the course of 15 seconds, and they're not necessarily correlated with any of this, you know. But I
They're good at
appreciate,
rhetoric. It's just not grounded in truth, and that's just what you expect from a politician.
yeah. But I'm going to add one point to what you were saying about the security risk it poses, because I'm full disclaimer, I'm going to lay my beliefs bare. Um, I believe that KYC, AML, I believe it's overreach. I believe the government's job is not to police the financial system. That's the job of the other firms in the financial system. I believe that it's actually not helpful. It's just adding paperwork. And it's done things like raise the price of going an IPO up to $5 million, which is why I believe why many firms are staying private and are just getting acquired instead, which is actually not better for us because we don't know what the hell's happening on their balance sheets. I'm done rambling. One of the things that came out of Doge that was good, I think it was good, is the Department of Government Efficiency hired the CEO of Levels to work as a CTO IT officer for the IRS, for the Internal Revenue Service. And one of the things he said, which I already knew, but it was vindicating to hear from someone inside the organization, they're stuck in like 2003. He came in to sunset a system that was running on logic that was from like the early 2000s. And what was even worse, when he actually went in there to talk to the chief officers in this IT department, none of them had any experience in IT. They were all like bureaucrats. He asked them questions that any reasonable person in IT would ask, things about the MSP, things about the security, what hashes are you using, etc. They had no idea. They're like, I don't know, I just signed paperwork all day. And so he furloughed them all and actually brought some people in here who knew that what the hell they were doing with an IT stack. Ghost Alpha, thanks for joining. Everyone who's watching at home, Ghost Alpha and I are going to be hopping on to talk markets next week. No, but I agree with you. And the thing is, our federal government is horribly inefficient when it comes to any kind of management, but especially financial and data management. One of the reasons, let's be very, very blunt and critical, at least in my opinion, why we have so many financial issues in this country is the federal government has been on the wrong side of every financial disaster since the 20s. And sure, you could say, oh, but what about Powell? He saved us from COVID. He didn't save us. He pushed the bullet out till now. All this stuff we're seeing, issues with the job market, issues with new undergraduate hiring, all of that, pardon my French, shit that we're experiencing now, it's carryover
Yep,
because
we just delayed the inevitable with
we
COVID.
kicked
We
the
just
can down
delayed
the
it.
road 5 years. We're still going to have to deal with that. So I agree with you. We'll have to see. We're going to jump right into more legal drama though, because we are going to talk about clarity here in a second. I'm curious to hear your main takeaway. My main takeaway from this part of our conversation, it's not the regulation. The regulation is never helpful. What helps is actually building out the industry so it can watch itself, in my opinion.
That, and I guess my other side of all this is what I see is the government takes on duties it has no business doing and then doesn't do the things it's supposed to be doing. That's why I mentioned the international relations, the legal, like okay, we pay taxes so that the different countries will do international relations, work with each other, make things good for everyone. We pay taxes for legal enforcement, right? For like cops and stuff like that. So if they're not doing that part, but then why are we letting them do other stuff?
Right.
That's that's my thing is do your job. Don't take on other jobs that aren't your job. Like like as a community manager, I don't program. I don't develop code. That's not my job. And if I tried to do that, I would screw things up. That's how I see the government. They're just not doing their job. They want to do other people's jobs.
I agree, and your comments actually resonate with my number one political advice to anyone who's younger than me is we really need to start treating the government like a company that we're shareholders of, not an overlord, because we're paying them. And in every other organization, the people who pay for the company and provide for its well-being are called shareholders. And they have voting rights. And they actually make decisions where they sit down in a room. Typically people that are appointed by those shareholders, but sometimes shareholders themselves going, okay, what the hell are you doing with my money? And I believe we need to start treating the government like that, frankly.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do want to talk about some point, probably not today, is the debt to GDP ratio. But that's I feel that's not on our outline, and so I don't want to take us off course unless you want to.
Let's we'll put a pin in that. Jared, watch some of these other episodes because I'm sure Ghost Alpha and I will touch on that a little bit, but would love to have you back on the show to rant a little bit more. That would be a lot of fun. Um, let's jump into just a couple of these. We might not get to all of them, that's fine. But I want to talk clarity because it's this like boogeyman that's been hanging over the whole. It's both a boogeyman and like the savior, the like Neo of crypto. That reference dates me, I'm sure, but The Matrix, go watch it if you haven't. It's really fun. But simultaneously, people have been saying the Clarity Act will break and save crypto at the same time. And I've seen it over and over again for months. It's been sitting in the Senate Banking Committee for a long time, and it just passed. The one kind of a little blurb here that I pulled from one of these articles is some analyst groups are now saying that the odds of it passing the full Senate and House are up to 75%, and others saying this is the most important piece of U.S. crypto regulation to date. I'm curious on your thoughts on this, Jared, because frankly, I was pretty unimpressed. I haven't read through the whole bill yet. I still got to do that. But the highlights I've seen haven't really given us any kind of concrete changes. And they didn't include an ethics clause at all. So like the president and all his friends can still, pump and dump crypto all day long. I know you said this is something that you haven't looked at a lot, but have you looked at it some or?
I've looked at it some. I'm not gonna. So I'll be the first to say, am I a Clarity Act expert? No, right? So I don't want to. So one thing I will say is I looked at Polymarket today. Right now they're giving it a 50% chance of passing.
Oh, so it fell.
It fell.
Oh,
I think that's because they were first looking at will it get through the banking committee, and the banking committee pushed it. But the Senate itself is more complicated to get it through. They have to get basically for it to pass, you need pretty much every Republican voting yes, which is likely, but you also need 7 Democrats to do it. Now, 2 people in the banking committee who voted for it are Democrats. So it's reasonable to say they will push it. Why would you vote for it once and not vote for it later? But hey, they're politicians. Their word means nothing. So, uh, I mean, as as the saying goes, how do you know a politician's lying?
mouth is open. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and I say that with both parties. I'm not very, I don't have a high view. I have a whole new political system I'd like to put forward too, but that's a whole other thing.
Most crypto people that I meet are in that same boat. and software developers, interestingly enough. Y'all are a whole
Yeah,
bunch of anarchos, and I love it.
well,
Love everything
I'm
about it.
actually I'm not an anarcho. I think we need some government, unfortunately, but that's my real belief is instead of elections and voting, it should be jury duty style. You just get randomly chosen, you're a senator.
Interesting. I
Yeah,
have
I
not
think
heard that before.
my real belief is if you want to be in power, that means you shouldn't be.
Yeah, I
The
would agree with
fact that
you on
you
that.
want it. So I actually want someone to be put in power who's like, "Oh god, I don't want to do this." Like, means you're perfect for the job.
No,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
That's the perfect guy, you know? Anyway, okay, so as far as so some of the stuff in there is very good and should I mean, is common sense, which is we need to distinguish what's a security, what's a commodity, right?
Right.
And most of these things are actually commodities. Surprise, surprise. I see that as very good. Um, Having some laws in place that protect open source, decentralized developers, not holding them, not making them. What's the guy's name who right now he made the Bitcoin mixer and they're trying to throw him in jail? Um, he's doing a second trial, not just one but two. Do you know him? I'm trying to remember the man's name. So things like that I see as very good. Um,
Mhm.
the stable coin stuff, the banksters are just trying to get their hands in so that they don't go out of business. Because obviously, if all you have to do is buy stable coins, you automatically earn 4% or more interest. Then then that makes them an endangered species, which they should be because they're worthless. Um,
Can I pause you for just one
yeah,
second? I appreciate that because when I first heard about Coinbase's CEO walking out because the whole banking lobbying system showed up to fight this thing, the post I made was, if the banks are so worried about stable coins earning yield, the stablecoin company should really start offering mortgage loans. Really piss them off. Because here's the thing. I'm going to hop back on the soapbox if that's okay, just for a second.
take it.
Stable coins are not a currency. They are a derivative based on treasuries. That's what they are. They are backed one to one, which means they are required to hold liquid assets underneath them, or at least liquid enough assets to where they can maintain that one to one peg. So they act exactly like a bank. That's what they are. It is bank currency. Um,
Mhm.
and so this whole idea of like, oh well, you shouldn't be able to afford them the right to have yield on just holding your stable coins. Really? Because you guys get yield for just giving your money to the Federal Reserve. What the hell's with this double standard?
Yeah,
So
they just know that the stable coins will come in and give more yield to the people using them, and
mm,
they're scared. That's what that is. And it looks in the and I will say the Clarity Act gave them that one. They said, "Fine, well, we won't let the stable coins beat you up too much." Now, I think there's a lot of room for the stable coin guys to find a way to beat them up anyways. Truth is, the current banks are a type of business that's begging to be destroyed. They have a very punchable face. Um, I do too, right? So, but so that's really where I see the Clarity Act. So I don't
oh,
like that part of the Clarity Act. I'm not surprised the banks got that through.
mhm.
Um, But as far as other things like security versus commodity, getting rid of some of the regulation by enforcement, I do see that as ultimately good. I
Yeah,
think it's
no, 100%.
better I think it's better than not having it, quite honestly. Another 4 years of Gary really screwed the crypto industry. And I can go into why that is. People kind of don't understand why he was so bad sometimes. So I hear arguments, oh, Trump's worse for crypto than Biden. And I'm like, the reason it feels that way is because we're still having the Gary hangover to this day.
Yeah.
It's like the analogy I'll use is you went out drinking last night and you drink a whole thing of Jack Daniel's whiskey.
Mhm.
Now you're not drinking anymore. Oh, so you should feel better right now, right? No, you're gonna.
Anyone watching this who has done that, I'm not a drinker, but my buddies who have done that, that's not how that works.
That's not how it works. So we're hungover right now from Gary.
Mm.
That
And sorry, finish. I apologize. Finish what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. So people underestimate that. Like this, and also like something like until the Clarity Act passes, there's too much fear to really come back for crypto company to come and build in the USA. Because how do you know 2028 rolls around, you don't get Gary 2.0 over again because, say, Elizabeth Warren's president now.
I hope not. I hope that never occurs. Which
But
incident? No, yeah. Yeah. Frankly, yeah. I mean, here's what I was going to add because, the one thing that I appreciate about this passing, if it does pass, is that clarification. A while back, uh, young capital, yeah, about what I expected from two crypto bros. I'm not
he's
sure what
always
that
this
means.
way.
Yeah.
He's always this way. I actually want you to bring him on sometime, and me too, just so I can make fun of him to his face because he likes to hide behind the keyboard.
Nah, I don't care. People have their right to their opinion.
Oh, I don't mind his opinion. I just want to make fun of him to his face.
So the thing I'm actually more excited about, because frankly, and I'm going to be a little bit critical of the entire crypto industry. I said this in my previous live when I ended things with BDIC. Even though everyone and their dog across Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and everywhere else has said that, oh, this is revolutionizing the financial industry, the level of leverage and irresponsible trading that occurred in even things as simple as Bitcoin made the entire crypto industry one giant casino. You want to know why we had that big drop in 2024? Newsflash, it had nothing to do with some kind of weird intrinsic value calculation. By the way, you actually can't do that very well for Bitcoin without large statistical models. I've tried. But what happened was leverage. People were taking out 2x, 5x, sometimes 500x leverage on Bitcoin futures. And so when someone who's been holding it since 2009 decided, man, I would really like that money to buy a home right now, kills the entire industry. But the one thing I am excited about is I did a research project with the Global Coalition on Crypto Taxation. They're a public policy research group for crypto. Ghost Alpha. We made everything a casino. Yeah. Equities are the same way, buddy.
Equities are a casino now. I will argue gold has become a casino.
Yes.
I will argue, also things like calcium polymarket, pretty much anything can be a casino now.
That just is. It's just a whole bunch of.
Yeah,
I won't say degenerate gamblers. That's too mean. But yeah. You can bet on the weather tomorrow. No, you can trade derivatives on the weather tomorrow. It's different.
It's different.
Gambling's illegal in most states.
Yeah, I will argue we made everything into a casino, mostly because of fiat currency. If you look at what happened to Germany during the Weimar Republic, everything became about gambling during the 1920s. So that's what I just think it's related to that, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. The one thing I am excited about though with clarity passing and with those clarifications on what is the number one takeaway I found after 3 months of research. I was looking at specifically real world asset tokenization, which for people at home, you take a real world asset, you take the value of that asset, whether it be rent, whatever the cash flow happens to be, rent, EBITDA, doesn't matter. You put that into security, you break that up into hundreds or thousands of little pieces, and you sell them off a piece at a time. It's actually a really, really unique financial innovation. It's not new. Fractionalization has been around forever, but it allows you to fractionalize things you couldn't before. So the number one reason why that wasn't taking off, even though we've had successful trials of that all over the world where it was extremely successful, including St. Regis getting a larger round of funding than their NAV would have allowed in normal funding circles. You couldn't resell them because there was nowhere to resell them.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one reason why you couldn't do that was because the infrastructure wasn't there, and the infrastructure doesn't exist because people had no idea if they were going to wake up in 2029 and get sued. And with this passing, we're a little bit closer to having that be more mainstream, which the private market right now desperately needs. I'm not a crypto expert by any means. I don't really look at it all that much anymore. But one thing that I have researched and wrote about and talked about over and over again on this Substack and on this channel is the fact that our entire private equity and private credit system is loaded with zombies right now, and AI made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need that. The reason why it's so bad is because they don't have liquidity. It's almost impossible to sell a $100 million business with a toxic balance sheet to anyone. But by breaking it into 1,000 pieces or 100,000 pieces, you actually have a little bit more room for liquidity there. You're still going to have to mark it down. It's not going to save them, but it allows the liquidity to get moving again.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest takeaway for me, was like, okay, sweet, we're one step closer to bringing in the pieces of the Web3 and the crypto space that I actually like, that I actually care about, into reality. These new innovations that are actually going to allow us to do things like provide liquidity there, like provide T+0 settlement. Another big thing that's been the holy grail of finances since the beginning. So I'm excited for that. I'm not surprised that it was kind of a lame duck.
It's
Frankly.
just one of the, until you have, especially something like real world assets, and which is something that is a very institutional thing to do, and something that you're going to have custody issues with, like gold. Yeah, until you have the laws and regulation for it, you can't really do it. That's just how anything that's an RWA is. So.
No, yeah. And that's what I'm waiting for. Like I said, do I particularly care where this takes Solana or Ether or Bitcoin or whatever? No, not really. Frankly, I'm of the opinion now that over the next 20 or 30 years, it's just going to kind of meld into the rest of the larger financial system. Crypto is just going to become and I could be wrong on that, but my opinion is it's just going to become more products that people can purchase and trade, and that's fine. It'll innovate where it can, and
I have a dual view. Do I think crypto will go into mainstream finance? Of course. But but the internet has gone into mainstream. But that doesn't mean that the internet isn't still weird and still full of cyberpunks. So it's like, oh, we got Facebook, we got Google, we got all this mainstream stuff. It's not like the other stuff left. So.
No, yeah. And, that actually brings us back to what the discussion angle here was. Where does this leave the crypto markets? Is this going to, and I'd like to hear your opinion because you know more about this than I do. Is this bullish for the industry long term? Or is it, like it seems like we've talked about, is it just another thing? Is it just a lame duck? That
You mean the Clarity Act or
the Clarity
RWA?
Act specifically?
I think it's more bullish than bearish. it's not both. Sorry, it's not like perfect. I think we were looking for something that would be only good from the government, and let's be honest, it's really there. It's mostly there to help institutions, anyways. So, what I would say is the heart of crypto never needed it.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it at that. We are actually running short on time now, but that's okay.
I'm up. I can go longer if you want.
I cannot. I'm
Oh,
hard pressed an hour today.
oh, you have the hard.
Um,
Okay.
let's talk through. We talked to that already a little bit. We'll talk about this more, I'm sure, in other articles. Let's talk fantasy top and mining because
So
we had some.
I have actually a lot of neat things to say, a lot of opinions about that.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
um,
We got like 10 minutes
so
left.
mining,
So
I'll say this about mining. Here's my take on mining. Right now you're looking at the headline, miners are losing money. Truth is, miners, if you look 2018, there was times where they were losing money, 2020 and 2021/2022. It's kind of a cyclical thing. This is to be expected. Bitcoin mining's meant to be hard, not easy. That's it. So to me, I hear the headline miners are losing money. To me, it's no different than hearing the headline that my favorite football team lost the game. It literally means nothing. It's they'll be you wait a year, they'll be profitable again. It's just how it works.
you know, I'm actually going to disagree with that because something that I'm noticing is a lot of these miners are going from mining Bitcoin or mining crypto to creating compute for AI.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happened consistently over the last couple of years where their EPS falls, their balance sheet gets a little bit more stretched, their margins collapse, and they switch to AI. Incidentally, what was it, 2 years ago? Maybe 2.5 years ago? I was part of a consulting startup where someone reached out to us and asked, what do I do about this? I bought all this Bitcoin mining equipment and I'm totally going bankrupt. And that was what we told them to do. I don't remember if we actually got to the point where we got paid for that. We didn't get to the point where we actually had an agreement. But when we were talking, it's like, no, yeah, build a data center.
So
You have all the same equipment. So I
to me,
see.
what I see is both. They're going to switch between AI and Bitcoin, whatever's more profitable.
Well, see,
And this has always been up and down with Bitcoin mining. That's my point. There's always been times they're losing, always been times they're making money.
I was under the impression that a lot of the mining rigs, it's crossing the Rubicon. Once you go back to just being a rack for creating cloud compute, you can't go back. Not easily, anyway.
Well, if you're using ASIC miners, you can only do Bitcoin. There are some other coins I think you can do besides Bitcoin with ASIC, but it is Bitcoin focused. Regardless, I've just seen over and over, there's times the miners go out of business, there's times they do great. It's kind of a cyclical thing. Some survive, some die. It's not what I'm getting at is this isn't special as far as Bitcoin goes.
No, that's a fair point.
Yeah. As far as the top fund goes, they went out, they're going out, they're going under. Thank you for saying it was incredible analysis, Young. I really appreciate the compliment. The guy loves me. So, as far as the top fund goes, there's a few things. Number one, the game is as far as the game goes, it wasn't well designed, and it was way too dependent on Twitter and X and really weird influencers who don't make, who just the average person doesn't follow. So none of it made sense. As far as being a game. Man, I wish I had more time to talk about GameFi because I actually have a lot here.
Maybe we'll
Okay,
do a follow-up show in a couple weeks where we can
yeah,
talk about this more.
but basically they didn't have a good game, which is in the words GameFi.
Right.
So the fi is the finance, and there's the game. They didn't have a good game, and they were very focused on the finance. But if you don't have a good game, you don't have GameFi. I
Yeah.
will actually argue we've had successful GameFi. It just didn't use crypto. So, like Magic the Gathering is GameFi. People are spent buying Magic tickets and using them as currency. Um, or even CS:GO. Yeah,
That was what I
we
was going to bring up.
we've had GameFi. The main question is, do you really own the assets, and are they really liquid? Crypto does solve that problem. The the real issue why crypto hasn't worked out yet is it's really hard, one, to make the infrastructure right, which is still eh, and two, it's really hard to make a good game that people like.
Well, that was going to be my main takeaway from this because I don't know anything about Fantasy Top. This is one of those like know nothing. I I have been skeptical of NFTs since they were created. Let's be very clear. But what immediately jumped into my head, and this is from working in software over the past 2.5 years and looking at startups as much as I do. What makes and breaks a company has nothing to do with some magical force or some market force outside. Recessions can, things like the price of your debt can. So how hard is it for you to get funding? Can definitely do it. What really kills your company is the product. And that was the first question that jumped to my mind. And you just confirmed it when they said, like, oh, Fantasy Top's going out of business. Well, what was their product like? Did people actually use it? And it sounds like it was a strange MLM marketing scam, like those Temu ads, is
It
what it
was
sounds like.
it was just I'll say it this way. It was just a weird I'm not even gonna say it was an MLM. I'll just go as far as say it was a really bizarre concept that only would have made sense if instead you had like famous celebrity influencers like a Paris Hilton or a Snoop Dogg or something like that. And I think they were hoping that some fame that they would attract them, and they didn't, which isn't surprising. That's what I see, and even then, it would be hard to be successful with that model. There's plenty of products that are famous influencer based, like a Paris Hilton, that don't make it.
Right. Right. I think that's a good place to wrap this up. Before we go, over the next 12 months, what are you looking out for? Where do you see the crypto industry going, the crypto economy?
I see it taking two roads at the same time that diverge. One side is you're going to have this RWA infrastructure, the suits come in. And the more the suits come in, the more there's going to be development of privacy chains and GameFi and weird things that are going to be set up to resist the suits every step of the way.
Okay. All right. Well, Jared Busby, ladies and gentlemen, Crypto Confidence, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everyone at home, if you liked this, please subscribe to us here, both of us here on Substack. You can also subscribe to the Wealth and Wisdom live show on YouTube. I put up recordings of all these episodes there that you can go see. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Tyler. Have a good one.
You too.